Hi, I'm Saren. My sister looked straight at me and said, "This table is for family." And then she laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world, like the empty space beside them didn't carry years of quiet compromises I'd made just to stay within their circle. They expected the same routine from me again: sit quietly, smile politely, cover the bill, shrink into the background so everyone else could feel bigger. But that night, something inside me cracked. They had absolutely no idea what they were starting when I finally refused to play my part. Want to know what really happened the moment I stood up from that chair and chose not to sit down again? The seat that didn't belong to me. I should have said no. I repeated that to myself the entire drive across town. Both hands locked tightly around the steering wheel, I rehearsed excuse after excuse. I could fake an emergency, claim I had COVID, pretend the car broke down halfway there. There were dozens of ways I could avoid walking into that room. But I didn't. Because the guilt in my mother's voice when she asked me to come wasn't something I could shake off like dust from a jacket. So I ended up standing outside the Dominion Flame, a steakhouse so polished and expensive that even the air felt self-satisfied. I lingered outside a few seconds longer than necessary. Austin's late summer heat hadn't fully faded yet, and the warm air clung to my skin. My palms were damp. My heart tapped in my chest like a quiet warning. I could still leave. I could turn around, get back in the car, drive home, and pretend I never saw the message inviting me. But instead, I stepped inside. The maitre d' checked the reservation, recognized the family name, and led me through the dining room. The restaurant glowed with amber lighting, crystal glasses sparkling beneath a massive chandelier that hung over the central dining area. And there they were, already gathered around a long table near the middle of the room. The first person I noticed was my cousin Darian. His grin spread across his face the moment he saw me, slick and smug. Beside him sat Elra, dressed in a tight white dress and laughing just a little too loudly at something someone had said. My mother sat between two of my aunts, nodding politely while they talked. For 3 full seconds, no one acknowledged I had arrived. Then Darian spotted me. "Well, look who finally decided to show up," he called out, his voice loud enough to make people at nearby tables glance over. I was starting to think we weren't important enough for her anymore. I forced a polite smile. "Good evening." I stepped forward and reached toward an empty chair at the end of the table, hoping to sit down quietly without drawing more attention, but Elra's voice cut through the moment like a knife. She said, shaking her head with a sweet smile that never touched her eyes. "That seat's for Uncle Leo." "You know, family." The word family slid down my spine like a splash of cold water. Darian leaned forward and shifted his chair slightly, blocking the space completely. "Yeah, we're pretty packed tonight," he added casually. "You might want to grab a seat at the other table over there." He gestured vaguely behind me without even turning his head. It wasn't said like a joke. And no one laughed. My mother looked down at her glass. For a moment, I simply stood there, unable to breathe properly. I looked around the table at faces I had grown up with, people I had built pillow forts with as kids, people I had cried in front of, people I had once believed loved me. Now there wasn't even a chair for me. My heartbeat thudded loudly in my ears, but I didn't say anything. Not yet. Instead, I turned, walked over to an empty nearby table, and pulled a chair away from it. The legs scraped loudly across the marble floor. The sharp screech echoed through the dining room, but I didn't stop. I carried the chair back and placed it beside their table. Not quite part of it. Not completely separate either. Close enough to hear every word, far enough to make it clear I wasn't welcome. I sat down slowly and ordered a black coffee. Then I folded my hands in my lap. I could feel the weight of sideways glances from other diners across the room. The waiter looked at me with quiet curiosity before walking away. Across the table, Elra lifted her wine glass. "To togetherness," she said with a smug little smile. "Some of us actually value it." A few people laughed. Not everyone, but enough. Darian leaned toward one of my cousins and whispered something I couldn't quite hear. I stared down at my glass, watching condensation gather and slide down the side like tiny escape routes. I kept my expression blank, because if I blinked too slowly, if I let my guard slip even a little, they would see exactly how much it still hurt. It had always been this way. Even when we were kids, I was the quiet one, the bookish cousin, the moody girl who preferred reading to playing dress-up or gossiping about boys. I didn't drink in high school. I didn't party in college. While they were out chasing attention, I quietly built something for myself, piece by careful piece. They never noticed. Not until the day they needed something from me. Now that my company had crossed the 7-figure mark and my name had appeared in a local Forbes feature, suddenly I mattered again. But not for who I was, only for what I could provide. Of course, no one would say that directly. Honesty would ruin the game. Instead, they preferred little performances like this. Social games disguised as family dinners. Musical chairs played with someone's dignity. I watched as they passed around bread baskets, shared stories, clinked glasses. No one asked me how I'd been. No one cared what my life looked like now. The table felt like it was made of glass, and I was nothing more than the fingerprint they refused to wipe away. Then came the moment that sealed everything. Darian cracked a joke about people forgetting where they came from once they made a little money. Elra laughed instantly, throwing her head back dramatically. Halfway through the laugh, she turned toward me. Her eyes locked onto mine, and she didn't look away. Her smile widened slowly. That wasn't laughter. That was a challenge. I remained perfectly still, my jaw tightening behind a calm expression. I lifted my coffee cup and took a sip, letting the heat burn slightly on the way down. Better the sting of hot coffee than letting them see the pain behind my eyes. This wasn't an awkward dinner anymore. This was war. A plate full of expectations. And I wasn't going to flinch. At least not where they could see. But inside, something shifted. Like a thread pulled too tightly, finally beginning to snap. Darian's job. Elra's laugh. The deliberate way she held my gaze. It was all part of the same script I had watched play out for years. Only this time I wasn't standing quietly in the background. They had dragged me into the spotlight. And they had already decided my role. The outsider with the wallet. A waiter approached the table wearing a professional smile that looked practiced to perfection. Would everyone like to see the dinner menus? Darian straightened immediately and clapped his hands once. Let's do it, he said enthusiastically. I'm starving. Menus were passed around like invitations to a performance. Thick leather covers, oversized pages meant to impress. Darian opened his dramatically, glancing toward Elra like they were sharing a private joke. This place has Wagyu, right? He said while flipping through the pages, even though he clearly already knew. I'll take that, medium rare. And throw in the lobster too. He snapped the menu shut with a heavy thud. Oh, and let's grab that Cabernet we had at Thad's birthday. Elra laughed softly. You're so predictable. But yes, definitely get a bottle for the table. I kept my eyes on my menu. Not because I was reading it, because I didn't want to look at them. I already understood exactly what was happening. They hadn't asked what I wanted. They didn't care. This dinner wasn't about food. It was about entitlement, about the silent assumption that I would pay for everything. I glanced up just in time to catch Darian smirking at me. You good with that, Seren? He asked smoothly, as if he were generously including me in the decision. I blinked once. Sure, sounds festive. His grin widened immediately. Knew you'd be cool about it. You always come through. Elra turned toward the rest of the table. We should really make tonight count, she said cheerfully. It's not every day the whole family gets together. Rachel chimed in from the other side. Exactly. If we're celebrating, we might as well go all out. Several heads nodded. One of my uncles chuckled. As long as someone's covering the bill. For a split second, my body went completely still. Then came the final blow. Harlan leaned forward, speaking just loudly enough for everyone to hear. Oh, please. It's not like Seren can't afford it. She probably makes more than the rest of us combined. Laughter rippled around the table. Not loud, just enough to sting. That's right, Rachel added. She's our little tech queen now. Elra tilted her head sweetly. Let her treat us. That's what family does, right? My fingers curled slowly beneath the edge of the tablecloth. They weren't even pretending anymore. What had started as small comments had turned into a full performance. The restaurant lighting was soft and dim, but I could see the satisfaction flickering in their eyes, as if they had rehearsed every line before I arrived. I could have spoken then. I could have called them out in front of everyone, but I didn't. Instead, I offered a faint smile and lifted my coffee cup slightly, like a quiet toast. To family, I said. They clinked their glasses, celebrating the punchline. not realizing I was rewriting the story in real time. Because I wasn't mad. Not yet. What I felt was precision. They thought they had me pegged, that I'd sit quietly, take the hits, and pay for the pleasure. They had no idea what I was planning. The rest of dinner passed in fragments. Appetizers arrived, crab cakes, truffle fries, foie gras. The conversation blurred. All surface-level chatter with undercurrents of comparison, judgment, and performance. No one asked about my work. No one mentioned the startup I'd sold. No one said my name unless it followed a joke. I sat there quietly calculating, watching them pour wine, pass plates, make toasts. They weren't trying to connect. They were trying to impress each other and punish me at the same time. And I let them, because the more they talked, the more obvious it became. They weren't just trying to make me pay the bill. They were making me earn the right to be here. I heard Rachel laugh again. Let's not skip dessert. Get the sampler. Saren's got it. Darian raised an eyebrow. Yeah, let's do 3 of each. Might as well go all in. The waiter nodded, not even checking with me. The assumption was complete. I took a long breath. They thought they were clever. Let them think that. Let them dig the hole. I'd be the one handing them the shovel, the one who never spoke up. I watched them revel in their own performance. Every clink of a glass, every fake laugh, like a metronome keeping time for their manipulation. They thought they were winning, but what they didn't see was me scanning the table. Not for food, not for kindness. I was searching for one face, the only one I'd come here for. My mother. Maeve sat near the middle, her back straight, smile soft, eyes darting to the candles, the ceiling, the waiter. Anywhere but me. I waited for her gaze, a glance, even just the brush of concern. Nothing. She looked past me as if I were a shadow on the wall, like I wasn't even here. And that's when the ache twisted deeper. Not because they were laughing, not because they were Grady, but because the one person who knew better was silent. She always had been. The memory hit hard, so vivid I could almost feel the fabric of my childhood dress again. I was 11. Darian had poured orange soda in my backpack at my own birthday party, said it was because I acted better than everyone. I had run to the kitchen crying, hands sticky, notebooks ruined. Maeve had pulled me aside, smoothed my hair, and said, "Sweetheart, boys tease the girls they're threatened by. Just let it go." No correction, no defense, no apology for me, just a request to be quiet. And I had listened. Back then, I thought it was strength. Now I knew better. The plates were being cleared when Elvira's voice broke through the hum. "You know what I've noticed?" she said, brushing imaginary crumbs off her lap. "Self-made women are always the coldest. Like, they forget how to connect." I didn't look up. I didn't need to. The comment wasn't about women in general. It was about me. Darian laughed. Of course. Rachel muttered, "Amen to that." I let the words hang there like smoke. Slowly, I raised my eyes and looked at my mother again. She shifted in her seat. Her lips moved just enough to say, "They didn't mean it like that." I blinked once, and that was it. She wasn't defending me. She was excusing them again. She whispered it low, like she didn't want to stir the pot, like my feelings were a disruption to the balance she kept trying to maintain. And in that moment, I felt something crack. Not loud, not messy, just final. There would be no scene, no shouting, but something was leaving me. Something that had tried for years to believe this family could change. My fork was still in my hand, but I didn't touch the dessert they'd ordered for the table. I wasn't hungry. I was unraveling. Quietly, intentionally. I drifted back into memory again. Not a moment, but a pattern. The dozens of times my mother had asked me to be the bigger person, to let it slide, to not make things worse. It was always about keeping the peace, even if that peace cost me every piece of myself. I stared into my half-empty coffee, the bitter edge still clinging to the rim. A waiter passed, offering another round of wine. I didn't speak, just raised my hand in a soft decline. I heard them still laughing, heard my name mentioned under someone's breath. I didn't care enough to track who it was. I wasn't sitting at their table. I wasn't even sitting in their reality anymore. In my mind, I began stepping back. Not from the table, not from the room, but from the expectations that had caged me my entire life. For the first time in years, I saw Maeve not as mom, but as a woman who had chosen silence again and again. And no matter how much I'd wanted her protection, I could no longer excuse her absence just because she came wrapped in motherhood. They joked, they drank, they piled desserts into each other's plates, and I sat still, letting the numbness wash in, not to escape, but to prepare. Because while they laughed, I was changing. While they circled the same game, I was stepping off the board. And when I looked at my mother one last time, her eyes finally found mine. She blinked, startled, like she hadn't expected me to still be watching. I didn't smile. I didn't flinch. She chose silence again. And now I choose something else. The mask and the ultimatum. I didn't say a word, just held my mother's gaze long enough for her to understand. I wasn't waiting anymore. The silence between us stretched for maybe 2 seconds. Then I stood and quietly excused myself, stepping away from the table as naturally as I could. I made my way to the lounge area off the main dining floor, where the lights were lower, the music softer, and the illusion of peace a little more believable. It wasn't about needing air. It was about not suffocating. I sat near a tall window facing Congress Avenue. The view was blurred by the reflection of the chandelier behind me. People passed by outside, free and unaware. For a brief second, I envied their anonymity. Footsteps approached. I didn't look up. I already knew. "Hey," Darian said, voice smooth like always. "You okay?" I didn't answer. He took the liberty of sitting across from me, like we were old friends catching up over drinks. "You know how they are," he began, tone casual, loud, dumb, a little tactless, but harmless. I kept my eyes on the street. He waited a beat, then leaned in. "Look," he said, lowering his voice. "Between you and me, this whole dinner, it wasn't just about catching up. You probably figured that out already." "No kidding. But here's the thing," he continued, flashing that tired charm he used on women and investors alike. "You showing up tonight, that meant a lot to Mom, to the family. They were never going to say it, of course. They're all too proud for that. But they notice, especially after, well, you know, the Forbes piece." There it was. He gave me a tight-lipped smile. "You've done well for yourself, Saren. We all see it." I said nothing. "And tonight, it's just a dinner, one bill. It's not about the money, it's about the gesture." He smiled like he'd just solved world peace. "You pay, we laugh, we drink, we toast to you. Everyone walks away feeling good. Win-win." I turned to face him fully. "You mean I pay and they feel good?" He blinked, but the smile didn't falter. Semantics. I leaned back in the chair. "So that's the plan, huh? Hand me the script and hope I play along." He chuckled low. "Come on, Saren. Don't turn this into some kind of protest. It's family. We razz each other. We lean in. We cover when someone can't. We're all adults. You're not going to let a couple offhand jokes ruin the night, are you?" That word again. Family. Funny how it was always weaponized when they wanted something. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shift in my seat. "I'm not here to ruin anything," I said evenly. "But I'm also not here to fund a show I wasn't cast in." He exhaled sharply, eyes narrowing just a little. "Okay," he said, dropping the smile. "If that's how you feel." There it was. The pivot. The moment charm slid into pressure. "But just know," he continued, "if you don't step up here, it won't go unnoticed." I stared at him. "Is that a threat?" I asked. "No," he said too quickly. "It's just reality. This family talks, always has. You know how Mom is. You know how the others are. I'm trying to protect you, honestly, from the narrative." "Ah, the narrative. If you refuse to do something this small," he added, "it gives them permission to say a lot worse." That was the moment I realized he wasn't here to talk. He was here to control the fallout. I smiled, slow and careful. "You don't get to build a fire under me," I said, "and then ask why I'm sweating." He sat back like I'd slapped him. I leaned forward slightly. "And if you think I'm the kind of woman who pays hush money in the form of cheesecake and lobster, you're not nearly as smart as you think." He blinked. For the first time all night, Darian actually blinked. Then he glanced away, adjusting his shirt collar like it had suddenly gotten tight. "I'm trying to keep things from getting messy," he muttered. "They already are," I said softly, "but not because of me." He stood, hands on his hips, looking like he wanted to say more. Instead, he nodded once, sharper than necessary, and walked back to the table. From where I sat, I could see his shoulders tense. He rejoined the others with a forced laugh and some comment I didn't catch. I saw her turn toward him, her smile faltering. Maeve reached for her glass. Something was different. I hadn't won, but I'd broken the script, when even love isn't enough. I stayed in the lounge long after Darian returned to the table. The air felt heavier now. The distant clatter of forks and fake laughter didn't reach me the same way anymore. I was untethered from them, like a balloon they let go, expecting it to come drifting back. But I wasn't floating. I was watching. That's when my phone buzzed. I glanced down. It was her. Mom calling. For a second, I just stared at the screen. My finger hovered over the green button, then pulled away. I let it ring twice more before I answered. Serene. Her voice cracked softly, barely louder than a whisper. Sweetheart, are you okay? My throat tightened. She sounded like she used to on those rare nights when I had the flu, or after Dad left and I cried into her lap. She sounded like the mom I used to believe could fix anything. I know tonight was hard, she said, pausing. They can be a lot, but they're not bad people. They just don't always know how to handle your success. You've always been strong, stronger than them. I leaned back in the chair, eyes on the ceiling now. Is that what this is? I asked quietly. Me being punished for doing well? No, she said quickly. Don't twist my words, baby. I'm saying you're not like them. You've got the backbone. That's why I knew you'd handle this better than they would. She meant it as a compliment, but all I heard was surrender. She was asking me to carry the weight again, wrap it up, swallow it down, and be the better person. Still, for a moment, I let myself believe her. Maybe she really was trying. Maybe this was her way of saying she saw me now, not as an ATM or a black sheep, but as her daughter. Maybe. After the call ended, I didn't move. I just stared at the dim chandelier above me, the light fracturing slightly through a small crack in the glass, like everything beautiful in this family. It was polished but broken. By the time I got home, it was past midnight. I didn't even bother turning on the lights. I set my phone on the kitchen counter and poured myself water, my mind replaying her words again and again. You've always been strong. That's why I knew you'd handle it. She hadn't apologized. She hadn't acknowledged her silence. But she'd called, and that had meant something, hadn't it? I went to bed thinking maybe I'd call her back in the morning. Maybe invite her over. Maybe we could start from a quieter place. But morning had its own plans. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a call. It was a message. Mom, Saren, don't make this about you. Think of the family's name. Just help them out this once. That was it. One sentence, and every fragile piece of hope I had been clinging to shattered with it. Not because she asked for help, but because she said, don't make this about you, as if I was being dramatic, as if their cruelty, their laughter, their constant belittling was just a moment I had blown out of proportion. She didn't call to mend anything. She called to soften me up. The tears didn't come right away, not out of pride. There was just nothing left in the tank. My chest was heavy, but my eyes stayed dry. I opened the message, read it twice, then slowly typed my response. I'm not your scapegoat. Not anymore. I hit send. No punctuation, no room for misreading. I set the phone down, stepped away from the kitchen and into the hallway, each footstep quieter than the last. The emotional cord had snapped, not with a scream, but with a silence I no longer feared. I was done asking to be understood. Now I would make myself clear. Smile for the camera. I had made myself clear. At least I thought I had. But clarity doesn't mean people will listen. It just means they'll find a new way to pretend they didn't hear you. I was still in the hallway, leaning against the cool wall, when my phone lit up again. A new text. Elra. Hey, I just wanted to say I'm really sorry if tonight felt weird. I know things got awkward. I still love you, you know that, right? No punctuation at the end. No ownership of what she'd done. Just vague softness wrapped in sugar, and wrapped again in self-preservation. I stared at the screen for a moment, letting the message sit there like a cheap peace offering. Weird. That's what she called it. I didn't reply. Not yet. Something about it didn't sit right. The tone was off. Too polished. Too rehearsed. I locked my phone and stood up straight, already planning to leave. But curiosity got the better of me, and as I walked slowly back toward the dining area, I opened Instagram. A notification popped up. Rhea tagged you in a story. I tapped it. It was a boomerang clip, one of those cheerful little loops. The table laughing, glasses raised, everyone smiling like it was the best nights of their lives. Caption, family over everything. I looked closer. The video had been taken earlier, just before dessert. I remembered that moment,
because it was the exact second I'd gotten up to leave for the lounge. I was in the frame, kind of. You could see my elbow, half my shoulder, cut right at the edge, like an afterthought. Someone forgot to crop properly. She tagged me, but carefully angled the video to crop me out visually. I was there, but I wasn't.
It was surgical, a curated illusion that was never an apology. It was a setup. Text me sweetly, post me silently. It wasn't reconciliation. It was branding. I was being used as a prop in a narrative where they looked like the inclusive, loving, messy but adorable family, and I was just the blurry ghost who never fit in frame. I took a breath. It didn't steady me. It only stoked the fire. No more backing down. No more be the bigger person. I wasn't interested in size. I was interested in truth. I walked back to the table slowly, with a calm they didn't recognize on my face. Elijah noticed me first. Her expression tightened just a fraction before she replaced it with a smile. That same stage smile I'd seen since we were kids. The cameras on behave smile. She opened her mouth to speak. I didn't give her the chance. If anyone here thinks I'm just here for your highlight reel, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, but not loud enough to startle. Let me make this very clear. I pulled out my own phone, held up her Instagram post. I am not your accessory. Her mouth opened, but I didn't stop. You want me cropped out of your life? Do it honestly. Don't tag me for optics. Don't pretend you reached out when all you did was hide your insult behind a filter. Maeve whispered my name like she was trying to calm a dog. Darian leaned forward. Serene, don't do this here. Oh, I turned to him. Where should I do it, Darian? At your next wine tasting, or maybe during the next group text where you all pretend I'm too tense to be invited? No one said anything. I'm done playing quiet. I'm done making everyone comfortable while I bleed under the table. I sat down slowly in the chair I had dragged earlier. Not a full seat at the table, just close enough to remind them I'd never really left. The silence that followed felt deeper than anything anyone had said all night. Elra stared at her phone like it had betrayed her. Darian's jaw clenched. Maeve looked down, twisting her napkin into knots. And I didn't flinch. I wasn't background anymore. I was about to become the plot twist. This bill comes with a receipt. Not with screaming, not with a grand gesture, but with the kind of stillness that makes people nervous. The waiter returned, holding the leather-bound check holder like it was a crown waiting to be placed. He didn't hesitate, didn't glance around the table. He placed it directly in front of me. It landed like a gavel. For a beat, no one said anything. Then Darian broke the silence, his tone all smug nonchalance. You got this, right? He said, stretching his arms behind his head. It's nothing for you. There it was, the trap. The moment they'd all been circling toward like vultures dressed in designer labels. I let my hand rest on the bill. Didn't open it right away. I just looked around. Their expressions flickered. Rachel with her perfected Instagram smile. Elra adjusting her napkin like she wasn't staring. My mother, still looking down. Her glass now just a stem clutched in trembling fingers. Then I opened it. $3,247. Wagyu, lobster, truffles, vintage wine, double desserts, and not a single thing I had ordered. I inhaled once, slow and shallow, then exhaled through my nose. They thought silence meant surrender. They forgot. Silence can be strategic. I closed the bill, slow and deliberate. Then I reached across the table and slid it gently in front of Darian. I didn't say anything. Not yet. He blinked down at it, confusion flickering for half a second before his face tightened. What's this? He asked, that we both knew the answer. I finally spoke. Oh, you thought I was covering this? That's cute. His jaw clenched. You're serious? He said, voice low. Elra leaned forward, eye sharp. Come on, Serene. This isn't the time for theatrics, Rachel added. Yeah, we all agreed this was kind of your night. You were the one who said to family, remember? That was before you cropped me out of your family photo, I said without flinching. Rachel looked away. Elra straightened her back. Fine, she snapped. We'll split it 3 ways, but not with her. She's not family. Her voice cracked just enough on the word family to draw attention from the next table over. People turned. The energy shifted. For once, their quiet rejection wasn't behind closed doors, or buried in sarcasm. It was loud, ugly, public, and the restaurant noticed. Forks stopped clinking. Chatter slowed. Someone at another table whispered, "What the hell's going on?" I stood up, slow, calm. I looked down at Elra and at Darian, then finally at my mother, who still couldn't meet my eyes. "You keep calling me not family," I said. "Let me make it easier.
I took one step back from the table. You're right. No one breathed. I don't belong here. Not because I changed, but because I outgrew the script. Maeve looked up, lips parted like she was about to say my name, but I shook my head before she could. You wanted me to sit quietly and pay for the privilege of being mistreated. I continued. That was never family. That was theater. Darian muttered. Don't make this dramatic. I turned toward him. It's not drama. It's a receipt. You cashed in on me for years. This is just your balance due. And with that, I turned and walked away from the table again. But this time, I wasn't retreating. I was leaving on purpose. I could feel their eyes on my back, the silence behind me louder than any insult they could throw. I didn't owe them noise, just distance. Family ends where dignity begins. They said I wasn't family. I finally believed them. I kept walking, but only a few steps, just enough to let the silence hang, just enough to give them time to realize what had really happened. The room around us hadn't moved, but something in the air had shifted, something final.
There was no more chatter, no more clinking glasses or fake toasts. I turned slowly, one last time, and looked at the table. Nobody was smiling now. Darian's smirk was gone, replaced by that tight-lipped look he used when deals slipped through his fingers. You're really going to do this? He muttered, like I'd just embarrassed him at a board meeting. Elvra's hand twitched on her wine glass. She glanced at the people around us. For once, she looked worried about how this might play. Not on Instagram, but in real life. No one backed her up. Rachel looked down, chewing her lip like she wanted to disappear. Veda had gone pale, and Maeve just sat there, frozen, still clutching her napkin like it could save her from the truth. They didn't expect me to call their bluff. I walked slowly to the end of the table, not rushing, not storming, just moving with the kind of clarity that doesn't leave room for interpretation. You all sat here, I said, voice steady, and decided I didn't belong. My eye swept over the table. Darian flinched. But what none of you ever asked was, do I want to? That landed. I turned to Maeve fully now. Her shoulders looked smaller than I remembered. You knew, I said. You knew they were setting this up, and you let them. Her mouth opened, then closed. A single tear rolled down her cheek. You didn't have to defend me, but you could have noticed me. Still nothing. From the side, Veda whispered, We don't air family drama in public. I glanced at her without moving my head. You should have thought of that before posting fake apologies and cutting me out of family photos. She shut up fast. Harlan muttered something under his breath, but it didn't matter. His glare was familiar, toothless. The collapse wasn't loud. It was quieter than I imagined. A soft implosion of years of expectations finally folding under their own weight. And maybe that's what made it hit harder. I reached into my purse and pulled out a $100 bill. Clean, crisp, tucked between my ID and a stick of gum. I walked to the center of the table and laid it down. This should cover the coffee, I said, and my seat. I paused, letting the sentence finish itself. Then I turned toward the exit. My heels clicked against the floor, each step louder than their silence. I didn't rush, didn't flinch, just walked, steady and whole. And then, just as I pushed the door open, I heard it. Serene. Maeve's voice. Software breaking. But I didn't stop walking, because sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes what you need more than love is air and space, and the dignity of knowing you finally chose yourself. The silence that heals. I never looked back, but I heard my name. And this time, I didn't stop walking. 2 days later, I woke up in my apartment, wrapped in a kind of stillness that didn't ache. There were no missed calls, no texts, no new voicemails, no digital breadcrumbs leading back to that table. Just me, the soft hum of the air conditioning, and the late morning sun filtering through half-closed blinds. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I wasn't bracing for the next thing, the next jab, the next demand, the next guilt-laced, I just need a little favor. The silence didn't feel empty, it felt earned. I sat up slowly.
My body wasn't sore, but something deeper inside me felt reset, like I had crossed a bridge and burned it behind me, not in rage, but in necessity. Mid-afternoon, my phone buzzed once. A voice message. Maeve. I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the play button for a full minute before I tapped it. Her voice was softer than I expected. Tired, cracked around the edges. Serene, I don't expect you to forgive me, and I'm not going to pretend I didn't make it worse. There was a pause, the sound of her breath hitching. I know they were wrong. I know I should have said something. I was scared. That's not an excuse, but if you never come back, I still love you. Click. No follow-up, no second message, just that. I didn't cry because I was broken. I cried because for once someone in that family didn't ask me for something. She just left the door open quietly. I played the message again, then set the phone down and didn't reply. Not out of anger, out of clarity. Some wounds heal with time. Others become part of the skin, like a scar you stop noticing until someone touches it. Later that night, I opened my laptop. My startup's dashboard lit up with numbers, graphs, real momentum. The work I'd built without a single favor. Every email, every investor pitch, every long night of questioning if it would all fall apart. And yet, here it was, alive, growing. I met my own eyes in the reflection of the screen. I didn't lose them, I whispered. I found myself. I closed the laptop and stood, walking to the kitchen where I poured a glass of wine and opened the balcony door. Austin's skyline stretched out in front of me. Quiet, glowing, unaware of my family's theatrics. The kind of city that lets you disappear and reappear entirely on your own terms. Just as I took the first sip, my phone buzzed again. A message from a photo. The rest of them gathered around Maeve's backyard fire pit, smiling, toasting marshmallows. The caption read, "Real ones only, family first." I didn't open it, didn't zoom in to see who else was there. I placed the phone face down on the counter. I poured a little more wine, then walked back to the balcony and leaned against the railing. The city didn't ask me to smile. It didn't require an explanation. It just let me breathe. You can still love someone and still leave. Maybe you've been there, at a table where everyone smiles like nothing's wrong, while you sit there wondering how you became an outsider in your own family. I've been there too, and walking away wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I didn't leave out of anger. I left to protect my peace, because family doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. Loyalty shouldn't come at the cost of your identity. It took me years to understand. You can love someone and still choose distance. You can set boundaries without guilt. And silence, when it comes from strength, not fear, is powerful. If this story hit close to home, drop a 1 in the comments or let me know where you're watching from. If it didn't, that's okay. Tell me why. Your voice matters here. And if this message meant something to you, hit that subscribe button. There's more truth telling to come, and I'm glad you're here for it.